The first thing David noticed when he opened his eyes was the silence. Not the kind of quiet you get at home, but something deeper, something that made his skin crawl. The ceiling above him was white and smooth, nothing like the rough metal walls. Of the military base where he last remembered being, his head felt heavy, like it was filled with cotton. When he tried to move, his muscles screamed in protest. Every part of his body ached in ways he had never experienced before. It was as if he had been sleeping for years. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice coming out rough and scratchy. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and a woman in a white coat walked in. She had kind eyes, but there was something sad about her expression. Behind her came a man wearing what looked like a military uniform, but not one David recognized. "Sergeant Collins, you're awake," the woman said, checking something on a small device in her hand. "How are you feeling?" David tried to sit up, but waves of dizziness hit him. "I feel terrible. What happened to me? Where am I?" The woman helped him lean back against the pillows. "My name is Dr. Williams. You've been in our medical facility for 6 months now. You were badly hurt in the battle on Kepler 44-B. The memories came flooding back like a dam breaking. The alien ships filling the sky like angry wasps. It's the sound of weapons firing everywhere. The screams of his fellow soldiers. A transport ship full of families trying to escape. And how he had thrown himself between them and the enemy fire. 6 months? David's voice was barely a whisper. What about the war? What happened to everyone? The man in uniform stepped forward. "I'm Colonel Peterson. I'm afraid I have some difficult news to share with you." David's heart sank. He could tell by the way they were looking at him that whatever they were about to say wasn't good. "The war is over," Colonel Peterson continued. "Humanity surrendered 3 months ago. Simply couldn't match their technology and numbers." The room seemed to spin around David. All those battles, all those friends he had lost, all the pain and suffering, it had all been for nothing. "So we lost," he said, more to himself than to them. "Yes, but your actions during the final battle didn't go unnoticed," the colonel said. "It's a civilian transport you saved carried over 200 people. Families, children, elderly folks who would have died without your intervention." David closed his eyes, remembering the moment when he had made that choice. He'd known it would probably cost him his life, but he couldn't just watch innocent people get hurt. "I was just doing my job," he said quietly. Dr. Williams sat down in the chair next to his bed. "The alien coalition that defeated us, they call themselves the Ethereal Council. They've been watching the reports of what happened during the war. They were impressed by your courage." "Impressed?" David felt confused. "They're our enemies. Why would they care about what I did?" Colonel Peterson cleared his throat. "Well, that's where things get complicated. The Ethereal Council has decided to honor certain humans who showed exceptional bravery during the conflict. You've been selected for what they call a recognition of valor." David didn't like the sound of that. "What does that mean exactly?" The two exchanged glances, and David could tell they were uncomfortable with whatever they had to tell him. "The council has decided to grant you a companion," Dr. Williams said carefully. "It's their way of acknowledging your heroic actions." "A companion?" David felt even more confused. "What kind of companion?" "Someone who will be assigned to take care of you, to help you as you recover and adjust to the new world we're living in," Colonel Peterson explained. "It's part of their post-war integration program." Something about the way they were talking made David suspicious. They were being too careful with their words, like they were trying to hide something important. "You're not telling me everything," David said, trying to sit up straighter despite the pain. "What aren't you saying?" Dr. Williams sighed. "The truth is, we don't know all the details ourselves. The council doesn't explain their decisions to us. What we do know is that you're being transferred to a facility where you'll meet this companion. And if I refuse..." The room fell silent. Colonel Peterson looked down at his hands before speaking. The council made it clear that refusing their gift would be seen as an insult. They said it could affect how other human prisoners are treated. David felt a chill run down his spine. "Prisoners? Is that what we are now?" "Technically, yes," the colonel admitted. "But prisoners who are being treated well, given medical care, food, shelter, Things could be much worse. David stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything he was being told. The war was over. Humanity had lost. And now he was being given some kind of reward that he didn't understand and couldn't refuse. It all felt like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. "When do I have to go?" he asked. Williams said, "A transport ship will take you to the orbital station where you'll meet your companion." David nodded slowly. Didn't have much choice in the matter, it seemed. "Can you at least tell me what this companion is supposed to do?" "From what we understand, they're trained to help with daily tasks, provide company, and assist with the adjustment process," Colonel Peterson said. "Think of it as having a personal assistant." But David could tell there was more to it than that. The way they avoided his eyes, the careful way they chose their words, it all suggested that this companion arrangement was something they didn't want to explain fully. That night, David lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His body was still, weak, but his mind was racing. He thought about his old life, his job as a teacher before the war, his small apartment, his books. All of that was gone now, replaced by this strange new reality where aliens controlled human fate. He wondered what kind of being this companion would be. Would it be human? Alien? Would they be kind? Or would they treat him like the prisoner he apparently was? As morning approached, David made a decision. Whatever this companion arrangement was, he would face it with the same courage he had shown in battle. He had survived 6 months in a coma, and he would survive whatever came next. The transport ship arrived exactly when Dr. Williams had said it would. As David was helped aboard, he took one last look at the medical facility that had been his home for half a year. Then the doors closed, and he was on his way to discover what his new life would be like. During the journey, David pressed his face against the small window and watched the stars go by. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home planet. He wondered if he would ever see it again, or if this orbital station would be his new home forever. The ship docked with a soft thud, and David knew his old life was truly over.
Ow.
Whatever waited for him beyond those doors, there was no going back now. The orbital station was nothing like David had imagined. As he walked through the corridors, he noticed how everything seemed to glow with a soft, warm light. The walls were smooth and curved, almost like being inside a giant shell. It was beautiful, but also strange and foreign. A tall figure in a flowing robe guided him through the maze of hallways. This was his first time seeing one of the aliens up close. The being had long, thin limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer like water. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. "You will find your quarters comfortable," the alien said. "Everything has been prepared for your arrival." David nodded, though he still felt confused about what was happening. "Will you tell me more about this companion I'm supposed to meet?" The alien stopped walking and turned to face him. Its large, dark eyes seemed to look right through him. "All will be explained soon. For now, you must rest and prepare yourself." They arrived at a door that slid open silently. The room beyond was larger than David's entire apartment back on Earth. There were soft chairs, a bed that looked incredibly comfortable, and windows that showed the stars outside. In the center of the room stood a small table with food and water. "This is your home now?" the alien said. "Your companion will arrive shortly." David wanted to ask more questions, but the alien had already left, and the door had closed behind him. He was alone again, but this time the silence felt different. It felt like something was about to happen. He didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, the door opened again, and someone walked in. David's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, but not like any human woman he had ever seen. Her skin had a soft blue glow, like moonlight on water. Her hair was silver and seemed to move, even though there was no wind. Her eyes were a deep purple color that reminded David of the night sky. She was beautiful in a way that made David's heart race. But there was something sad about her expression. She walked with her head down, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "My name is Zara," she said, bowing slightly. "I have been assigned to serve you." David felt uncomfortable immediately. "Serve me? What does that mean?" Zara looked up at him, and he could see confusion in her purple eyes. "I am here to take care of your needs. Is to cook your food, clean your quarters, and provide company when you require it. But I don't need a servant, David said quickly. Can take care of myself. Zara's expression became worried. Please, you must understand. This is my purpose now. If I do not fulfill my duties, there will be consequences. David sat down heavily in one of the chairs. What kind of consequences? I was captured when my homeworld was conquered, Zara explained, her voice trembling slightly. My people, the Celestians, we were peaceful, had no weapons, no armies. When the ethereal council arrived, we could not resist. David felt a wave of sadness wash over him. How long ago was that? 3 years, Zara said. Since then, I have been trained to serve as a companion to important prisoners. You are the first human I have been assigned to. Important prisoners, David repeated. Is that what I am? Zara nodded. The council considers you valuable because of your actions during the war. They believe that treating you well will encourage other humans to accept their new situation. David stood up and began pacing around the room. So you're basically a slave, and I'm supposed to be your owner? Please do not use that word, Zara said, looking frightened. The council does not like it when we speak of such things. But that's what this is, isn't it? David said, feeling angry. They've made you into a slave, and given you to me as some kind of reward. Zara moved closer to the window, looking out at the stars. I try not to think about it that way. It is easier to survive if I focus on my duties. David watched her for a moment, seeing the pain in her posture. What was your life like before all this happened? For the first time, Zara's expression brightened. Slightly, I was a teacher, like you were. I taught young Celestians about the history of our world and the art of light weaving. Light weaving. Zara held up her hand, and suddenly the air around her fingers began to glow with soft colors. The light danced and swirled, forming shapes that reminded David of flowers and birds. It is how my people express creativity and emotion. Each person's light is unique, like a fingerprint. David stared in amazement. That's incredible. Can you still do it? Sometimes, Zara said, and the light faded. But only when I am alone. The council prefers that we do not display our natural abilities. Why not? They say it makes other prisoners uncomfortable. They want us to blend in, to not draw attention to our differences. David felt his anger growing. That's terrible. You shouldn't have to hide who you are. Zara looked at him with surprise. Most prisoners prefer that we stay in the background. You were the first to ask about my past. I'm not most prisoners, David said. I'm not comfortable with this whole arrangement. Just then, the door opened again, and another alien entered. This one was different from the first, taller, with skin that seemed to be made of metal and eyes that glowed red. David could tell immediately that this was someone important. I am Commander Thane, the alien said in a deep, rumbling voice. I oversee the companion program on this station. David stepped forward. I want to talk to you about this companion arrangement. I don't think it's right, Commander Thane's red eyes focused on David. The council has honored you with a gift. To refuse it would be considered an insult. But she's not property, David said, gesturing toward Zara. She's a person with her own thoughts and feelings. She is a resource, Commander Thane replied, coldly. One that has been trained specifically for your benefit. I suggest you learn to appreciate what you have been given. David felt his hands clench into fists. And what if I refuse to treat her like a resource? Commander Thane moved closer, and David could feel the threat in the alien's presence. Then you will find that the council's generosity has limits. Your comfortable quarters, your good food, your medical care, all of these things can be taken away. And not just from you, but from other humans as well. David looked at Zara, who was watching the conversation with fear in her eyes. He realized that he was trapped. If he refused to go along with this arrangement, it wouldn't just hurt him, it would hurt other people too. I understand, David, said quietly. Commander Thane nodded. Good. Zara will explain your daily routine and help you adjust to life on the station. I trust there will be no further problems. After the commander left, David and Zara stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, David spoke. I may have to accept this situation, but I don't have to like it. And I'm not going to treat you like a servant. Zara looked at him with confusion. But if you do not, the commander will be angry. Let me worry about the commander, David said. For now, why don't you tell me more about your world? I'd like to know about the place you came from. For the first time since she had arrived, Zara smiled. It was a small smile, but it made her whole face light up. I would like that very much. As they sat down together, David realized that while he couldn't change their situation, he could at least try to make it more bearable for both of them. Maybe in time they could find a way to be something more than prisoner and servant. Maybe they could find a way to be friends. The first few days were awkward for both of them. Zara would wake up early and try to prepare breakfast for David, but he kept insisting that they eat together. She would start cleaning the quarters, but David would take the cleaning supplies from her hands and do it himself. Every time he did something like this, Zara would look confused and worried. You don't understand, she said one morning as David made his own bed. If Commander Thane sees that I'm not doing my duties, he will be very angry. David sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at her. Then we'll make sure he doesn't see. When he's around, you can pretend to be serving me when we're alone. We can just be normal people. Zara tilted her head. A gesture that David was learning meant she was thinking carefully. Normal people? Yeah, like friends. People who talk to each other and spend time together because they want to, not because they have to. I have not had a friend in a very long time, Zara said softly. David felt his heart break a little. Well, now you do. As the days passed, they began to develop a routine. In the mornings, they would eat breakfast together and talk about their dreams from the night before. Zara's dreams were always filled with colors and lights, while David's were usually memories of Earth. In the afternoons, they would explore the station together, with Zara showing David the different areas and explaining how everything worked. Station is like a small city, Zara explained as they walked through what looked like a garden area. There are thousands of beings living here, from dozens of different worlds. David stopped to look at a plant that seemed to be made of crystal. Do you ever see any other Celestians? Zara's expression became sad. Sometimes. But we are not allowed to speak to each other. The council says it prevents us from planning trouble. That's cruel, David said. Everyone needs to talk to people from their own culture. The council does not think about what we need, Zara replied. They only think about what is useful for them. During one of their walks, they came across a large window that showed the view outside the station. David could see other ships and structures floating in space, and in the distance, a blue and green planet that looked almost like Earth. That's Kepler 44b, Zara said, noticing where he was looking. The planet where you fought your last battle. David stared at the world below. It looks so peaceful from here. Hard to believe so many people died there. War is always like that, Zara said. Beautiful from far away, terrible up close. David turned to look at her. Did your people ever have wars? Long ago, yes. But we learned that fighting only brings sadness. We chose to focus on creating beauty instead. She held up her hand, and the familiar soft light began to dance around her fingers. This is what we believe in now, making something beautiful from nothing. Can you teach me? David asked. Zara looked surprised. You want to learn light weaving? But you are not Celestone. Maybe not, but I'd like to try. I used to love creating things when I was a teacher. I would draw pictures for my students and help them make art projects. Zara smiled, and David realized it was the first time he had seen her look truly happy. I would like that very much. They spent the next hour with Zara trying to teach David how to feel the light inside himself. She explained that for Celestians, light weaving wasn't just about creating pretty colors. It was about expressing emotions and sharing feelings with others. Close your eyes, she said gently. Think about a happy memory from your childhood. David closed his eyes and remembered being 8 years old, playing in his grandmother's garden during summer vacation. He could almost smell the flowers and feel the warm sun on his face. Now try to feel that happiness in your hands, Zara said. David concentrated, but nothing happened. He opened his eyes, feeling disappointed. I can't do it. That's okay, Zara said. It takes years of practice for Celestians to learn. but the fact that you want to try means a lot to me." That evening, as they sat together looking out at the stars, David asked Zara about her family. "I had a younger brother named Kieran," she said. "He was studying to be a healer. He could make plants grow faster and stronger just by touching them. Happened to him? When the council attacked our world, many of us were separated. I don't know where he is now. I hope he's safe somewhere." David felt a lump in his throat. "I'm sorry." "That must be really hard." "It is," Zara said.
But talking
"About him helps. For 3 years, I have kept these memories locked inside. The other companions, they say it's better not to think about the past. I think they're wrong," David said. "Our past is part of who we are. We shouldn't have to forget it." "What about your family?" Zara asked. David looked down at his hands. "My parents died when I was young. I was raised by my grandmother, but she passed away right before the war started. I don't have anyone waiting for me back on Earth." "I'm sorry too," Zara said. "But now you have me." David looked at her, surprised by the warmth in her voice. "And you have me." As the weeks went by, their friendship deepened. David learned that Zara was incredibly intelligent and had a wonderful sense of humor. She could make him laugh even when he was feeling sad about the war or worried about the future. In return, David shared stories about Earth and human culture, and Zara listened with fascination. "Humans are very different from Celestians," she said one day. "We are taught to be calm and peaceful. But humans have so much passion and energy. You feel things very strongly. Is that bad?" David asked. "No," Zara said. "It's beautiful. It's like your emotions are their own kind of light." David began to notice that Zara was changing too. She stood up straighter, spoke more confidently, and even laughed more often. The sad, frightened girl he had first met was slowly being replaced by someone stronger and more sure of herself. One day, as they were eating lunch together, Zara suddenly became very serious. "David, I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "There are others like us on this station. Humans and aliens who don't accept what the council is doing. They meet in secret." David felt his heart start beating faster. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there are people who want to fight back? People who dream of being free again?" David looked around the room, suddenly worried that someone might be listening. "Are you talking about some kind of resistance?" Zara nodded. "A human named Captain Rodriguez has been organizing small groups. They're planning something big. How do you know about this?" "Some of the other companions have been passing messages. We pretend to be loyal servants, but we're actually gathering information about the station's security." David felt excited and terrified at the same time. "Are you part of this resistance?" "I want to be," Zara said. "But I was waiting to see if you would want to join too." David didn't hesitate. "Of course I want to join. I never wanted to be a prisoner, and I definitely don't want you to be a slave." Zara smiled, and David could see hope in her purple eyes. For the first time since they had met, "Then tomorrow night we take our first step toward freedom." As they held hands and looked out at the stars, David realized that what had started as an impossible situation had become something neither of them had expected. It found not just friendship, but a reason to hope for something better. The meeting place was in the deepest part of the station, far from where the guards usually patrolled. David and Zara made their way through dark corridors, trying to look like they were just taking a late evening walk. David's heart was pounding, so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. "Are you nervous?" Zara whispered as they approached a maintenance door. "Terrified," David admitted, but also excited. "I haven't felt this hopeful in months." The door opened, and they stepped into a small room filled with people from different worlds. David recognized some humans from the station, but there were also several aliens he had never seen before. At the center of the group stood a woman with graying hair and determined eyes. "You must be David," she said, extending her hand. "Captain Rodriguez. I've heard good things about you from our friends." David shook her hand, feeling impressed by her firm grip. "Thank you for letting us join. We need all the help we can get," Captain Rodriguez said. "Zara tells me you have military experience." "I was a sergeant in the final battle," David said. "But I was a teacher before the war. Better with words than weapons. Words can be just as powerful as weapons," said a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "I'm Corvon. I used to be an engineer before the council destroyed my homeworld." David looked around the room. He realized that everyone there had lost something important to the Ethereal Council. There was a human doctor whose hospital had been bombed, a young alien whose entire family had been captured, and several others with similar stories. "What's the plan?" David asked. Captain Rodriguez activated a small device that projected a map of the station in the air. "We've been studying the station's layout for months. The key is the central command center. If we can take control of it, we can disable the security systems and open the docking bays. And then what?" It asked a human named James. "Even if we escape, where do we go?" "There's an abandoned planet in the Outer Rim," Corvin explained. "It's beyond the Council's usual patrol routes. We could build a new settlement there, away from their control." David felt a mix of excitement and fear. How many people are we talking about? Everything goes according to plan, we can get about 300 people off the station, Captain Rodriguez said. "It's not everyone, but it's a start." Over the next few weeks, David and Zara began their roles as secret agents. During the day, they would act normal, with Zara pretending to serve David while he pretended to be a content prisoner. They would sneak around the station, mapping security patterns and identifying weaknesses. Zara turned out to be incredibly good at gathering information. Her role as a companion meant she could go almost anywhere on the station without being questioned. She would listen to conversations between guards and report back to the group. "The night shift changes guards every 4 hours," she told David. One evening, there's always a 15-minute gap where the east corridor is completely empty. David was amazed by how much she had learned. "You're like a spy in those old movies." "I prefer to think of myself as a freedom fighter," Zara said. With a smile, their relationship had grown stronger through working together. David found himself looking forward to their secret meetings and planning sessions. Zara was not just his friend now, she was his partner in something important. But their activities didn't go unnoticed. One morning, Commander Thane appeared at their door unexpectedly. "I trust you are both well," he said, his red eyes scanning their quarters. "Yes, sir," David said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Is there something you need?" "I have been reviewing the security reports," Commander Thane said. "There have been some unusual movements in the lower levels of the station. People walking around at night when they should be sleeping." David felt sweat forming on his forehead. "I wouldn't know anything about that." Commander Thane moved closer. "Of course you wouldn't. You are a model prisoner. But I want you to know that we are watching. If anyone is planning something foolish, they will be caught." After he left, David and Zara sat in silence for a long time. "He knows something," Zara said finally. "Maybe, but he doesn't have proof," David replied. "We just need to be more careful." The next night, they learned that their caution was justified. During the resistance meeting, Captain Rodriguez had terrible news. "One of our people was caught." She said a human named Peterson was found trying to access the communications system. "He's been taken for questioning." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what questioning meant. "What did he know?" asked James. "Too much," Captain Rodriguez said grimly. "He knew about our meeting place, our plans, and some of our members." David felt sick, so we're compromised. "Not necessarily," Corvin said. "Peterson is strong. He might not talk for a while. But we need to assume the worst and move up our timeline." "How much time do we have?" Zara asked. Captain Rodriguez looked at her watch. "If we're going to do this, it has to be tomorrow night. After that, it might be too late." The next day was the longest of David's life. He tried to act normal, but every sound made him jump. Every time someone walked past their quarters, he expected it to be guards coming to arrest them. Zara was equally nervous. She dropped things while cleaning and kept looking toward the door. "Are you having second thoughts?" David asked her. "No," she said firmly. "I've been a prisoner for 3 years. I'm ready to be free, even if it means taking risks." "If we get caught?" "Then at least we'll get caught trying to do something brave," Zara said. "That's better than just accepting our fate." That evening, as they prepared for what could be their last night as prisoners, David realized something important. Whether their plan succeeded or failed, these weeks of working together had changed both of them. Zara was no longer the frightened girl he had first met. She had become strong and confident. Someone who could make her own choices. And David had found something he hadn't expected. A sense of purpose beyond just surviving. He was fighting not just for his own freedom, but for Zara's and for everyone else who deserved better than what the council had given them. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said to Zara as they looked out at the stars, "I want you to know that meeting you has been the best thing to happen to me since this whole war started." Zara smiled and took his hand. "Tomorrow we find out if hope is stronger than fear." As they prepared for sleep, both of them knew that when they woke up, everything would change. The question was whether it would change for the better or worse. The rebellion was about to begin. The alarm started blaring at exactly midnight. David jolted awake, his heart racing as red lights flashed through their quarters. Beside him, Zara was already sitting up, her eyes wide with fear. "They found Peterson," she whispered. "He must have told them everything." David grabbed her hand. "Then we stick to the backup plan. Are you ready?" Zara nodded, though he could see she was scared. "I've been ready for 3 years." They had rehearsed this moment dozens of times. David went to the wall panel and began working on the maintenance access, while Zara gathered the few belongings they couldn't leave behind. The sound of running footsteps echoed through the corridors outside. "There," David said as the panel slid open. "This leads to the service tunnels." They crawled through the narrow passage, moving as quietly as possible. The tunnels were dark and cramped, but they knew the route by heart. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they reached the first checkpoint. "Storage. Bay 7, Zara whispered, checking her small device. Corvin should be waiting. The blue-skinned engineer was indeed there, along with 12 other escapees. His forearms moved quickly as he worked on a control panel. "The main power grid is almost disabled," he said without looking up. "Once it goes down, we'll have maybe 20 minutes before backup systems kick in." "What about Captain Rodriguez?" David asked. "She's leading the assault on the command center," said James, who was helping 3 elderly humans stay calm. "If she succeeds, we'll have control of the docking bays." Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, casting everything in an eerie red glow. "That's our signal," Corvin said. "Move." They ran through corridors that David had walked calmly just hours before. Now everything looked different in the red light. Guards were shouting somewhere in the distance, but they seemed to be heading in the wrong direction. "The diversion is working," Zara said as they reached another group of escapees near the docking bay. "The other teams are creating confusion in the upper levels." David counted quickly. There were about 40 people gathered here, with more arriving every few minutes. Humans, Celestians, and several other alien species he had learned to recognize. All of them looked scared but determined. A young human woman came running up to them. "The transport ships are ready, but we have a problem. Commander Thane figured out what we're doing. He's bringing security forces to the docking bay." David felt his stomach drop. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 5 minutes," she said. Corvin was already at work on the docking bay doors. "I can get these open, but someone needs to hold off the security forces long enough for everyone to board the ships." "I'll do it," David said immediately. "No," Zara grabbed his arm. "We're not splitting up. Not now." "She's right," said James. "We need a better plan." That's when Zara did something that surprised everyone. She stepped forward and began to glow. Not just her hands, but her entire body was surrounded by soft, beautiful light. "I have an idea," she said, "but I need all the other Celestians to help me." There were 6 Celestians in their group, and they all looked at each other uncertainly. "What are you thinking?" asked one of them, an older male named Talon. "A light barrier," Zara said. "Kit, if we combine our abilities, we can create a wall of light that will confuse their sensors and give everyone time to escape." "That's forbidden," Talon said. "The Council specifically banned group light weaving." "Council isn't here," Zara said firmly, "and I'm tired of following their rules." One by one, the other Celestians began to glow as well. David watched in amazement as they formed a circle and raised their hands. The light that came from them was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was like watching a rainbow come to life. Spinning and dancing in the air, the light barrier spread across the entrance to the docking bay just as Commander Thane and his forces arrived. David could hear them on the other side shouting in confusion as their equipment malfunctioned. "Now," Corvan yelled, "everyone to the ships." The next few minutes were chaos. People ran in every direction, climbing aboard 3 small transport vessels. David helped an elderly human man up the ramp, while Zara continued to maintain the light barrier with the other Celestians. "Zara, come on," David shouted. "We have to go." She looked back at him, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of maintaining the barrier. "Not yet. There are still people coming."
Oh.
David could see the last group of escapees running toward them. Captain Rodriguez was with them, supporting a wounded human soldier. "That's everyone," she yelled. "Let's get out of here." The Celestines finally let their barrier fade, and everyone rushed toward the ships. David grabbed Zara's hand and pulled her toward the nearest transport, but Commander Thane was faster than they expected. As the light barrier disappeared, he charged through with several guards. David saw him raising some kind of weapon toward Zara. Without thinking, David threw himself between them. The energy blast hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing to the floor. Pain shot through his entire body. "David," Zara screamed. She knelt beside him, her hands glowing as she tried to help with his injury. But Commander Thane was already advancing on them. "You have caused enough trouble," the commander said, raising his weapon again. That's when Zara did something that shocked everyone, including herself. She stood up and faced Commander Thane, her whole body blazing with light, brighter than anything David had ever seen. "No," she said, her voice strong and clear. "You've caused enough trouble." The light that came from her wasn't just beautiful. It was powerful. It filled the entire docking bay, so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. When it faded, Commander Thane and his guards were on the ground, unconscious but alive. "How did you do that?" David asked as Zara helped him to his feet. "I don't know," she said, looking just as surprised as he was. "I just knew I couldn't let him hurt you." They made it to the transport ship, just as the engines were starting up. David's shoulder was throbbing, but he was alive. As they lifted off from the station, he looked out the window and saw other ships escaping in different directions. "Did we all make it?" he asked Captain Rodriguez. "Most of us," she said sadly. "We lost some people, but we saved nearly 200. The journey to the New World took 3 days. David spent most of it recovering from his injury, while Zara took care of him. But this time, it was different. She wasn't taking care of him because she had to. She was doing it because she wanted to. On the second day, as they sat together looking out at the stars, Zara said something that made David's heart skip. "When we get to our new home, I want you two know that I'm choosing to stay with you." "What do you mean?" David asked. "I mean that for the first time in 3 years, I have a choice about my own life. And I choose to be with you, not as your companion or servant, but as your partner." David smiled, feeling happier than he had since before the war started. "I'd like that too." When they finally reached the new planet, it was more beautiful than any of them had imagined. Green forests, blue oceans, and mountains that reached up to touch the clouds. It would take years to build a proper settlement, but it was theirs. As David and Zara stood together on the New World's surface, watching humans and aliens work side by side to build shelters, David realized something important. The war had taken everything from both of them, their homes, their families, their freedom. But it had also brought them together and given them something neither had expected. "What are you thinking about?" Zara asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. "I'm thinking that sometimes the best things come from the worst situations," David said. "If the war had never happened, we never would have met." Zara smiled and took his hand. Around them, their fellow refugees were building the foundation of a new society, one based on cooperation instead of domination. "This is just the beginning," she said. David squeezed her hand and looked up at the alien sun setting over their new home. For the first time in years, the future looked bright.